Welcome to Delta G chemistry videos. Today I'll be going over micro flash chromatography, which is a great technique for separating small amounts of uh, small scale reaction mixtures, typically about 10 milligrams or less. First, I'm going to TLC the unpurified reaction mixture to make sure that the solvent system I'm using can elute my compounds. So you can see here that I have decent separation between my spots, so I'll go ahead and use the solvent system. Then I'm going to take a piece of glass wool and I'm going to firmly insert it into a small glass pipette. If you insert the glass wool too loose, silica gel will flow through into your column fractions. If you'd insert it too tightly, solvent won't flow through the glass wool. So next I'm going to add a small layer of sand on top of the glass wool just to provide a layer in between the silica gel and the glass wool. And then I'm going to wet it with just a small amount of, wet the sand with a small amount of hexane. So next I'm going to add a layer of silica gel, just pouring it in with a little scupula. Sorry about the recording. This is my first video, so hopefully it gets a little better. Now I'm adding more hexane, and sometimes some silica gel spills onto the side of the pipette, so just rinsing it with acetone to rinse all the loose silica gel off the glass. Little silica. Now I'm going to add some pressure with a pipette bulb just to elute the hexane out through the column, just to make sure all the silica gel is nicely flush with solvent. So you'll see in a moment that what I mean by flush with solvent. So you can see that the silica gel has like a nice translucent effect to it, translucent appearance. So it kind of looks a little opaque. You can really tell the difference between wet silica gel or wet with solvent silica gel and dry silica gel powder. So then again, just applying some pressure with a pipette bulb and just making sure that the whole system, the whole silica gel, is all flushed with hexane. So next I'm going to start preparing my sample for loading. So I'm going to take a small aliquot of DCM in a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and wet the compound with the smallest amount of DCM that I can possible, just to get it off the sides, the compound off the sides of the glass. And then I'm going to add some silica gel onto that solution. And I'm going to add enough silica gel so that I have a nice fluffy white layer of silica gel on top of the compound. And so you can see here that I'm vortexing and I'm just slightly tapping the silica gel just so that it becomes all crumbly and as free flowing as possible. And so if you tap it, the silica gel kind of comes off the edges of the glass and starts becoming a free flowing powder again. So a nice little trick here, I don't know if you can see this, but if you put an NMR tube cap on top of the pipette, it'll keep the solvent from dripping down the column. So it's a nice little way to put a little pause on your column if you need to, a cap if you will. So now I'm going to slurry pack this silica gel on top of the column. Little different technique than normally I do. So I wet the silica gel with hexanes just enough to get it so that it's that when I draw it up into a pipette, that it'll totally, the silica gel will now flow in as a solution into the pipette, as you can see here. So just a little more, and add a little more hexane. There we go, just mixing it up, making sure that the silica gel is free flowing into the hexane. It's a nice solution. So basically going to slurry load this silica gel solution on top of the column, the pre-packed column. So I went a little tall here with the pipette column, It's a little mistake. I would normally like to keep some separation on the tip of the column because it's easier to load solvent on and then to run the column. So you can see that the top of the silica gel is kind of drying out, but that's a mistake. I'll just kind of got to be better about eyeballing how much silica gel I'm using. So now I'm just gonna load on the last little bit of slurred silica gel onto the top of this column and then start running it. So typically I'm collecting about half a mil fractions in this column. Doesn't take a lot of volume of solvent to kind of flush it through. But it also depends on your solvent system. If I have a really fast solvent system, I'm going to take smaller fractions. And if I have a real slow column system, I'm probably going to take a little bit larger fractions, maybe up to a milliliter instead. So now just going to go ahead and I'm going to start applying pressure to this system and start collecting fractions. So yeah, now's the time where I'm collecting fractions. This is kind of a longer, tedious part of the micro flash chromatography, but if you put on a little playlist, you got some music going, or I typically like to listen to a podcast, Joe Rogan Experience, or some sports podcasts that I have. It really helps kind of pass the time as you're collecting fractions. So now here we go, just in the grind, just pumping these little fractions out as fast as possible. At this point, it would be really nice if I didn't overload the silica gel, because then I could add more solvent. I wouldn't have to be putting a little, half milliliter increments of solvent on top of the silica gel. But like I said, learning experiences for next time. I run this technique. Typically, I wet load. I don't slurry load um, the compound onto the flash column. But this is pretty important, so I wanted to make sure I got the best. This compound's very important, so I wanted to make sure I got the best separation I could. So now I'm just kind of checking the samples. So I'm TLCing a fraction, and I'm just kind of spotting it on a plate and checking it by UV to see if any material is eluting out. So it's hard to see, but yes, there was a little bit of compound that was eluting, and so I was getting kind of excited. I was like, okay, this is kind of a faint spot, so I probably should be collecting more fractions. This is probably my first spot on the TLC plate. Yeah, so if you like this content, please give a thumbs up, like it, add a comment. If anyone sees any techniques that I can do a little bit better, or has a technique that they've used in their experience in chemistry that has worked really well, all years, just trying to learn and get better, and do this and kind of share this little technique that I've gained through my experience with the community, the organic chemistry community. So it looks like I'm just about getting finished. So collecting more fractions, collected about 25 half mil fractions in this little uh, micro flash chromatography technique. So about 5 minutes in past this point, the GoPro camera died, so I won't get to show you the process of TLCing my fractions, but you can see here that the micro flash chromatography worked pretty well. So I was able to separate the first two spots at the top pretty well within a couple fractions. I have one fraction, row 3, fraction 4 that's mixed, and then a pure fraction in row 4. But then you can see from row 4, fractions 3 all the way to row 5, I have a pure compounds. Thank you for watching Delta G OChem videos. I'll be posting more content like this in the future of techniques, and hopefully if this gains traction, maybe some podcast type uh, post. Thanks.